نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين فإن زللتم من بعد ما جاءتكم البينات فاعلموا أن الله عزيز حكيم هل ينظرون إلا أن يأتيهم الله في ظلل من الغمام والملائكة وقضي الأمر وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. Respectful honorable friends, in the verses that I've recited to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions something very, very important with regards the iman of believers. He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, udkhulu fi silmi kaffa, enter into Islam fully. Wala tattabi'u khutuwati shaytan, and do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. Innahu lakum aduwwun mubin, indeed he is for you an open enemy. Something that is very relevant and important for Muslims for all times, and that is udkhulu fi silmi kaffa. The reason for this verse being revealed was that there were few Sahaba, the likes of Abdullah bin Salam radiallahu ta'ala and others, who came into Islam from a different other faith. So Abdullah bin Salam radiallahu ta'ala was a Jew. Not only that, but he was actually a rabbi. He was a scholar for the Jews before he accepted Islam. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Salam and a few others thought to themselves that whilst they were followers of the religion, the madhab of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, for them on the day of Saturday was a day of auspiciousness, a blessed day, the Sabbath. On that day certain things were prohibited, among which was also that it was not allowed for them to eat the meat of a camel. On the day of Saturday, as fishing wasn't permissible for them, but then to the Banu Israel still made certain plans and still continued with it, which we have covered in the past. So he thought, and they thought, that why not combine both the shariats in a manner in which, now we must understand his thinking was also good. And he thought that look, that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam is also Nabi of Allah. Hence, according to his shariat, on Saturdays it's not permissible to eat the meat of a camel. And at the same time, in Islam has not made it farz upon us that we have to eat the meat of a camel. Hence, when it was something practiced and prohibited during the time of Musa alayhi salam, and because Islam has not ordained that we have to eat, so if we do not eat the meat of a camel, we won't be violating the laws of the Shariat. So because of this, on a day of Saturday, they stopped eating the meat of a camel. This verse was revealed because of such type of practices. Now the beautiful thing is, dear friends, we interpret and we utilize this verse for us in today's time, wherein we don't practice Islam at all properly. Whereas here Abdullah bin Salam, if you think of how his thinking was, he himself gave preference to Islam, wherein he thought that because Islam has not made it farz upon us, has not ordained us that we have to eat it, so if we don't eat it, there's nothing wrong in it. However, if Islam had made it first, then obviously he would not have practiced it. So he thought that because Islam hasn't made it first upon us, so if on that day we do not eat it, there won't be any harm at all in us in doing it, and we won't be violating any laws of the Shariat. This was his thinking, which shows that even in such times they still gave preference to Islam and they still wanted to practice Islam. On this type of practicing of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse. So imagine what's the case of our practicing of Islam in today's time, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed that Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kaffa, that O you who believe, now that you have come into the fold of Islam, udkhulu fi silmi. Silm means Islam, kaffatan, in its entirety, completely, mukammal, completely. The word udkhulu fi silmi kaffatan, Mufassirin have given two interpretations of it. This is more to do with the grammar aspect as to what describes what. Kaffatan, does it refer to entering or does it refer to Islam? If kaffatan refers to entering, then they mean that enter into Islam completely, meaning not just with your heart but with your entire body. With your eyes, your ears, your tongue, your hands, your legs, everything in your entire body should come into Islam. Meaning that physically your entire body should be submissive to the laws and commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if kafatan refers to the word silmi, which means then come into Islam, meaning into the total Islam. So either it means that you totally come into Islam, or it means you come in total Islam. This is the difference with regards to the grammar of the word kafatan, which is a hal here. I won't go into too much in the grammar because it will be just bounces for you all. So either it refers to silmi or it refers to entering into Islam. Whichever one we take, it all refers to one thing, and that is a person should be 100% in Islam. Not our case wherein 50-50. Where it suits us, we're in. When it doesn't suit us, we jump the boat. Things that are easy for us to do, things that are enjoyable for us, we are in. If we are told that there's going to be a special function, a talk in the masjid, some very important program, etc. in the masjid, very important talks are going to be told about deen, etc. and these type of things, then we look at the posters, do they say refreshments or not? Is there any refreshments or not? Oh well, there's no refreshments and there's no langar and refreshments, and no, not my time, not keen on it, isn't it? And then we read there at the bottom, it says refreshments will be served later. Oh, there's refreshments, and that, come on. We make sure we're in. That's when we're in. So when it suits us, we're in. When it doesn't suit us, we're not in. Because the aim isn't for the talk to learn something of deen, but it is obviously for other motives. Similarly, that's just on a lighter scale. But more important is a matter of practice of deen. Certain laws and injunctions of Islam are easy for us to follow, that we'll easily follow. For example, let's take dressing. For example, to wear the topi, the headgear, this is easy. The headgear is very easy to wear. And in today's time, it's much easier because you have all sorts of head caps anyway in today's time. So nowadays, the topi also, some forms of topi also has become such a fashion that a person won't look different if he wears just the headgear. So nobody finds that difficult at all. To wear a long jabba or shalwar kameez, this also isn't too difficult at all, because in some parts of the world it's part of the uniform. If their clothing is such, for example, if a person goes to Bangladesh, Burma, these type of areas, there the normal clothing is the lungi. The loincloth, the lungi is their normal clothing. So that is, even the women wear lungis. If you go to Rangoon, even the women, dear friends, wear lungis there. So for them to wear a lungi, there's no achievement in it at all, because that's the national clothing there. Yes, for somebody here to wear it will be an achievement to make amal upon the sunnah. However, if a person wants to make amal on the sunnah of the lungi also, it's very, very important that you only wear the lungi if you know how to wear the lungi. This is very, very important. It shouldn't be a case wherein we want to make amal on the sunnat, so much we put the lungi on, but then we don't know how to look after the lungi, so when we get into the car, come out of the car, or when we're in the sajda also, then everybody behind gets to see the entire Ganga Jamna. That shouldn't be the case either, dear friends. And these type of things do happen. You have many cases where, dear friends, people want to wear it, but what they don't realize is, for the satar to be concealed is first, to wear the lungi is sunnat. So it shouldn't be that you're foregoing a first because of the sunnah. So what happens is, they wear the lungi, but in coming in and out of the house or cars, etc., what happens is, it raises and then the satar is disclosed. This is incorrect. However, you'll find if it's somebody from Bangladesh or somebody who has a habit of wearing a lungi, you'll find in any circumstances, you'll find that satar always remains concealed. For example, we know about Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Sahaba also, that was his practice. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had never worn trousers. He had purchased trousers, he had trousers in his possession, but he had never worn, there's no mention of him wearing it. So that was his sunnah, to wear the lungi. But with the lungi also, dear friends, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would jump onto a horse, jump off a horse also. These type of activities the Sahaba and Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would do. But if we try and do it, dear friends, we know exactly what will happen to us. So if a person knows how to wear it, then a person then only should. This is advice with regards to lungi. And if you can't wear it, just stick to the normal trousers as long as it's above the ankles, because that is also wajib. Not only for salat, but at all times. It is wajib at all times. Misconception where we think that the trousers should be above the ankles only for salat. For it to be below the ankles and you perform salat, it is makruh. However, a person will still be sinful for having the trousers beyond the ankles at all time. Inna Allah la yuhibbul musbilin. One hadith Nabi Karim mentions that Inna Allah la yuhibbul musbilin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love the persons whose upper garments flow below the ankles. Ma asfala min al-isari min al-ka'bayn fi an-nar. In another hadith, whatever flows below the ankles from the izar, from the upper garment, will be in the fire of Jahannam. So obviously you won't find that a person's feet will be in the fire of Jahannam and his body will be in Jannat. So the juz refers to the kull, part refers to the entirety. So if the feet are in the fire of Jahannam, then obviously the entire body will also be in the fire of Jahannam. What more proof would a person want than these forms of ahadith? مَا أَتَاكُمُ الرُّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Now if you want proof of it, where is proof in the Quran that your trousers should be below the ankles? This is the proof where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا أَتَاكُمُ الرُّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ. What Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has told you to do, grab hold on to it. وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. What He has prevented you from, abstain from it. And this is exactly what Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has prevented us from doing. So our case is here, friends, things that are easy for us to make amal upon, we will make amal upon these type of things. The example I was giving of the headgear and the shalwar kameez, somebody made us put on the shalwar kameez on. To make amal on these type of things are very, very easy. But then when it comes to the asal sunnat of keeping a beard, for example, or of the trousers and that being above the ankles, there then we're not in Islam. So in just the normal topi or shalwar kameez, we're in Islam. In the beard and other difficult things, we're out of Islam. There it becomes difficult for us. Just recently there was a person who, he met somebody I knew anyhow. Now he had one of those designer beards and his entire head was shaved off. He had no hair on his head, shaved off. So he met his uncle and he's telling his uncle that, uncle, sunnat. He's telling his uncle, showing his hair that it was all shaved off. He's saying sunnat, sunnat. So his uncle said to him, and this? The uncle said to him, what about this? Whose sunnat is this then? So he was trying to boast that I've shaven my whole hair off, so I'm making amal on the sunnah. I've shaved it off because of the sunnat. Whereas what he doesn't realize is what sunnat is that. That was the only sunnat when Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would make amal upon at the time of Hajj or Umrah, etc. Otherwise, even that it won't be his continuous sunnat. So even if it is sunnat, then why make such a big deal about the sunnat, but what about the wajib? So his wajib is totally contrary to the sunnat, and he's boasting about his hair. And obviously, that was just an excuse. He didn't shave his hair off because it's a sunnah, because it's fashion. If it wasn't fashion to be a skinhead, then a person wouldn't make amal upon it, isn't it? There's a time when that used to be a flaw in a person, if you were to be totally shaved off. And in many places, when I was studying in Darul Ulooms, etc., that was a punishment. The punishment in the madaris, and up to now also in other countries, it still be the punishment for the student, and the most severe punishment for a student was because the hair is a student's pride. I mean, any person's pride. So the punishment in the madrasa used to be bless. Then South Africa call it bless, meaning total blessed. Now you blessed, now without any hair. That would be the permission. That would be the punishment for a person. Whereas now, if that's the punishment in today's time, nobody find it difficult at all because you just fit in with the fashion of today's time. So dear friends, where it suits us, we make amal upon the Shariat, and where we find things difficult, there we want to start making excuses. Either we don't practice it at all, or we start making excuses. For this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fis silmi kafa, that O you who believe. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also using the word here, amanu. This isn't for anybody else, but O you who believe. So although a person is already believing, which shows us that Iman and Islam is two different things. Iman and Islam, although they are integral, but they are two different things. Iman is to do with a person's internal self, where a person brings Iman, which is tasdeeq bil qalb, where a person accepts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by means of his heart. This is something which is in the internal form. Nobody can see. You can't see my Iman, neither can I see your Iman. Somebody comes and say, I am a Muslim, I am a mu'min, I've got Iman. It isn't something that he carries in a bag or something that he can show it to us, shows an idea, proof, we can't see it. So Iman is to do with the internal self. And Islam is where a person is submissive in apparent external form. So you can be a mu'min, but you may not be a Muslim. You may be a mu'min, but you won't be a Muslim. Although a person can't be a Muslim without being a mu'min. I hope I haven't confused you. You can be a mu'min without being a Muslim, but you can't. You can be a mu'min without being a Muslim, but you can't be a Muslim without being a mu'min. Which means if a person he just becomes a Muslim, only a Muslim, not a mu'min, just a Muslim. Wherein he keeps a beard, he wears a turban, he wears a jabba, everything. He might read salat and everything. But he's not a mu'min, he doesn't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Muslim, him being a Muslim, won't be sufficient for him, it won't suffice for him. Whereas a mu'min is somebody who brings Iman. So somebody who just acts as a Muslim, he does everything as a Muslim would do, but he doesn't have Iman, that's of no use to him at all. Whereas if a person is a mu'min, where he has Iman but he's not a Muslim, they still hope that obviously he will still go in Jannat. Because every believer who has recited the kalima obviously will be entered into Jannah. So a mu'min will be entered into Jannat. However, Islam and a Muslim is his true identity. It is that which shows that he is a mu'min. When a person is externally obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he shows his Islam externally, then only will you know that a mu'min is a Muslim. Otherwise, you'll easily recognize a Muslim, but you won't recognize a mu'min. Which means that a believer who isn't dressed as a Muslim, who just walks down the road, you won't know whether he is a Muslim or not. But if a Muslim walks down the road, you'll know that it is a Muslim. Otherwise, somebody else, you won't know he is a Muslim or not. As the report says, जिसके चेहरे पे न हो आह नबी की सुन्नत, जिसके चेहरे पे न हो आह नबी की सुन्नत, कैसे मालूम हो मोमिन का मुसलमान होना. Which means, जिसके चेहरे पे न हो नबी की सुन्नत, on whose face there is not the sunnat of the Prophet, how do you know? जिसके चेहरे पे न हो आह नबी की सुन्नत, कैसे मालूम हो मोमिन का मुसलमान होना. How will you know that a mu'min is a Muslim? How would you know? If the sunnat of the Nabi is not on the face, how would you know that the Muslim is a mu'min? Which means, he is a mu'min, he say, I am a mu'min, I am a Muslim, my name is Abdullah. Sometimes you walk somewhere, you don't know What is he? Is he a Muslim or not? You don't know that you should make salam or not. And unfortunately at times then you don't know, so obviously you're not going to make salam, you don't make salam. And then the person gets offended and he makes salam and says, Assalamu alaikum, Muslim. Isn't it? And he says, Muslim, my name is Abdullah. Okay, thank you. I didn't know that, isn't it? And they get offended that why we didn't make salam to him. How does they expect that we should make salam to him when he's not showing us that he's a Muslim? Which means he's a mu'min, but we don't know whether he's a mu'min or not. Whereas if he's a Muslim, you'll know automatically he's a mu'min. If he has the appearances, if he has external form, you'll know for sure that he is a believer. Otherwise, you won't know whether he is a believer or not. That's why, dear friends, a lot of people wonder what's happening in the Middle East. A lot of people wonder what's happening in the Middle East. And I'll be very frank and open. What happens in the Middle East hurts us all, obviously. However, you find the victory that came about in Afghanistan against the same oppressors, we don't find this scenario in the Middle East. Both are Muslims. Those in these countries are also Muslims, and obviously in the Middle East, the Muslim countries now may be Muslims, Muslim countries. But we don't find the same form of nusrat, the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the same form of victory in those countries compared to what in Afghanistan. Now if you wonder what's happening, why so much oppression, why no form of victory at all, we can't see a way out at all, no conclusion at all coming to it, there's one great difference. That is, the people of one country and the other, they're both mu'min, they are all believers. But look at the practice of both. Look at the practice of both. If you were to look at the Mujahideen of Afghanistan and compare them with Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Sahaba, compare them with the Mujahideen of Badr, and you'll find great similarities, due to which, dear friends, you'll find the same miracles and ajib incidents that happened in the Battle of Badr were also eminent during these types. Ayatul Rahman fi Jihad al-Afghan is a kitab written specifically, which means the signs of the Rahman in the Jihad of Afghan, wherein great miracles were witnessed, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assisted the Mujahideen. Whereas unfortunately in the Jihad of the Middle East, which is also a Jihad, we don't find this form of nusrat and help. The reason why, dear friends, is because unfortunately our Muslim brothers in those countries are lacking the external sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are many incidents in history also. Shurahbil ibn Hasna radiallahu ta'ala was the commander of a group of Muslims who went to liberate Egypt. And it so happened that whilst they were fighting there was one major fort which they just could not conquer at all. With all the battle tactics and everything, they couldn't conquer it at all. After which they wondered what's wrong, what's happening. So they all made mashra, what could it be? So they wrote back to the Amir al-Mu'mineen, Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala, asking him advice, give us advice, how come we are not victorious in this pursuit? They had marched all the way till there, but they just couldn't conquer this fort. Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala wrote back to them that, look within yourselves, analyze, is there any sunnah that you are missing out? Is there any sunnah that you are missing out? Now they all made mashra, what sunnahs are we doing, what are we not doing? And it so happened that majority of them had just lacked in using the miswak. Their just deficiency was that they were not utilizing the miswak. So then they made mashra, now let's start using miswak. The moment they started using the miswak, dear friends, without even a sword being used, they just marched to the fort and the fort crumbled in front of them. They became victorious because of the amal upon the sunnah. So when the sunnah is there, dear friends, then you'll find exactly what's going to happen. Many of us must have seen those pictures in bygone days now of Saddam Hussein on a musalla with his hands up in his eyes, hands are making dua. What's he making dua to? isn't it? Do you expect to get the nusrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a form? And yes, obviously, those who are clad according to the sunnah, who ask from Allah, perform salat with ikhlas, and the appearance and everything is according to the sunnah, and then when they get up, dear friends, it's only 313 against the great might. Just the 313 against the great might, dear friends, and the might tumbles because udkhulu fi silmi kafa. This is the difference between the two, dear friends, and this is very, very important. These type of things has a great impact and has a great effect on what a person does in the achievements of a person. That's why this is our deficiency in today's time, dear friends. The reason why we are not gaining the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reason why we are not achieving what we need to, is because udkhulu fi silmi kafa is not what we are making amal upon. When it suits us, we are Muslims, and when things are difficult around us, we go to work and we say that no, my name is Jacob, I am Jacob instead, I am Ash instead of Ashraf, I am this and that sort of things, and we don't want to show the people that we are Muslims. If somebody says, oh, you're a Muslim, oh yeah, I'm a Muslim, but I don't support what these people are doing, I don't support what they say, and I'm not with them, and all sorts of excuses we want to make, because we don't want to come into Islam entirely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, not Ya ayyuhan nas, but He says Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. When is it, if it would be Ya ayyuhan nas udkhulu fi silmi kafa, O people enter into Islam, but here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not giving dawah to the disbelievers, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding the believers. The Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, O believers, udkhulu, and udkhulu, dear friends, is in amr. It is in the imperative form, and al-amru al-wujub, that amr, the imperative form, dear friends, indicates towards something being compulsory and wajib. A command can't be optional. You don't just say sit. Doesn't mean optional. If you want to sit, sit. If you don't want to stand, does it? Doesn't mean that. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says udkhulu, amr siga. Amr meaning imperative is a command. Not that, okay, Rama, if you want, then come into Islam, and if you don't, Rama, okay, we'll compromise a bit. Dear friends, there's no such thing as compromising in Islam. Okay, if you want to keep few fasts, don't keep a few fasts, that's okay. If you want to be punctual on the Taraweeh, but don't worry about the Isha and Fajr Salat, that's okay. You do Taraweeh, but don't worry about the other Salats. MashaAllah, for Taraweeh, everybody is there, punctual, have to go there for the Taraweeh, etc. Whereas Fajr Salat, nobody is there. The other first Salat, we're not there, but for the Taraweeh, we are there. Yes, so and so has passed away, and there's Khatam in the Masjid, there's Yasin Khatam, then we are all there for the Yasin Khatam. If there's Nikah in the Masjid, then we are all there for the Nikah in the Masjid. But when it's time for Salat, we're not there for Salat in the Masjid. So the same Nikah party, dear friends, are there in the Masjid for the Nikah, but when Salat time is there, they might be just in the back room also of the Masjid, but they're there on the Dastarkhan, where they can't leave it and come into the Masjid. So this is our problem, dear friends. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding us, udkhulu fi silmi kafatan, that O believers, O you who believe, enter into Islam kafatan. Which means that if a person doesn't enter into Islam kafatan, he's still a believer, he's a mu'min. However, he's weak in his iman. He's weak in his iman, he's weak in his practices. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us, and do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. Why? Because it is the work of shaitan who wants to mislead a person in whichever form. Here Sayyidina Abdullah bin Salam and the other Sahaba, their thoughts were correct, but shaitan was misleading them. Shaitan was misleading them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicates towards that also, which also means to us that it's not shaitan doesn't always just mislead a person by means of open, clear, major sins. He may also mislead a person in such disguises where he doesn't realize that he's being misled. How? For example, Sayyidina Abdullah bin Salam, his thought was good that okay, Islam hasn't prohibited it, and it's the part of Shariat of Sayyidina Musa alayhi Islam, so let's make amal upon it. But what they didn't realize is that they were prohibiting something which was halal in Islam. Which means to prohibit something which is halal in Islam. So on the apparent to us, you may think, well, it's not a major sin, he's not committing, he's not eating haram or anything of that nature. But to make halal into haram is also haram. And to bring haram into halal is also haram. So this comes about when a person regards something to be unnecessary to be necessary, or necessary to be unnecessary. This is when a person now starts changing things in Sharia. And that's how shaitan then misleads a person, where a person may think that what he is doing is good. Abdullah bin Salam and the other Sahaba, they thought that what they were doing, there was nothing wrong in it. But shaitan had deceived them. In the same way, dear friends, innovations and bid'ah in deen also are those وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, where a person, when he practices upon an innovation, bid'ah in deen, he doesn't realize that what he is doing is wrong. That's why, dear friends, with regards bid'ah, one of the greatest evils of bid'ah is that when a person commits any other sin, they still hope that a person will make tawbah. Why? Because whoever commits a sin knows that he is committing a sin. A believer who may be a habitual sinner, but he knows that he is committing sin. At least he knows that. So when a person has such amount of consciousness, then there is hope that at some stage he'll realize and he might make tawbah. Because he knows every time that he commits it, he knows that what he's doing is incorrect, it is wrong. Whereas when a person commits a bid'ah, where he thinks that what he is doing is part of deen, so when he does it thinking to be part of deen, he's not going to think of it to be something that is haram or something that is unlawful. Due to which, dear friends, he won't just easily get the tawfiq of making tawbah. Because his mind won't go towards tawbah. Somebody is doing something, nobody reads Quran and thinks, oh, am I doing something right or wrong, let me make tawbah. Because you think, yes, I'm doing something good action. Somebody does anything good, he thinks to him, in his mind, he thinks that he's doing something good. So for example, on a night of Shab-e Barat, somebody comes to the masjid and he starts giving out bananas and fruits to the people outside the masjid. He'll think to himself, well, I'm doing something good, a good deed, where I'm feeding the people. To just give one morsel to another believer is sadaqah, so I'm giving sadaqah, I'm doing something good. So after that act, he's not going to go and start making tawbah, that did I do something wrong, etc. Somebody passes away and then the Imam Sahib makes, unfortunately, the Ilan is from the Musalla also, the Imam Sahib makes Ilan that after Salat there will be Yasin Khatam. So the Musalli is sitting there in the masjid, they're not going to think they're doing anything wrong. They think, well, we're reading Yasin Sharif after all. We're reading the Quran, we're not reading any we're not doing any poetry, we're not reading any novels, we're not reading anything haram, etc. We're just reciting the Quran after all. But what they don't realize is, because the practice is contrary to the Sunnah, and because it is an innovation, it is bid'ah, what they're doing is a bid'ah, but they don't realize what they're doing is wrong, so they're not going to make tawbah. They won't get the tawfiq of doing tawbah. This is how, dear friends, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is indicating at this injunction that even in matters of Islam, shaitan will mislead you. In matters of your own deen, shaitan will mislead you. That's why a Muslim has to be very, very conscious of shaitan, dear friends, that not only in the external form, because obviously, person who now starts practicing Islam, mashallah, somebody who's got a turban, he's got a beard, he's a musalli, people know him, he's a Haji Sahib, and these type of things, you won't just expect him to go into a casino. You won't expect him to just walk into a nightclub. Even if he wants to, he knows he can't. And he knows if I have to shave off the beard, and that I can't do because people wonder what's happened to him. So even if he wants to, he knows he can't do that unless he goes as a fancy dress. That's also been mentioned once. Just go to fancy dress that you are OBL, dressed up as OBL. La hawla. So a person can't do these type of things. This is what happens in various places where until the beard doesn't come, you can still at least put the kurta inside, you can still put the topi into the pocket, as many students do in student days, etc. But then afterwards, when now you become a alim and a haji and this and a beard and everything's there, now you can't just take that and put that into the pocket, obviously. So now when a person is going to abstain from these type of sins, shaitan can't just give up. Shaitan's never going to give up on a person that, well, now that's it, I've lost now. I've lost now. He's won. So now let go of him and now that's it, he's now out of my clutches now. No, shaitan is going to continue. He'll always continue. Even if a person now externally changes, now he's fully practicing Islam, etc., is then what happens is Shaitan, he's got his extra time forever. His extra time to carries on forever. No shootouts there. And then what happens? Shaitan misleads a person then through the means of Islam. The safs for Maghrib Salah, I'm sure throughout the country were much lesser last night. There's no extra time in our lives. There's no extra time in our lives, and neither will there be any shootout with Malik al-Maut. When the angel of death comes, he won't say, come, let's have a shootout there, because after that there's no other next round to go into. Well, there is the next round, which is the final, then after that is the final, and that's the hereafter. But you won't have the chance of extra time, and neither will a person have the chance of a shootout. I don't know, I haven't been out today, I don't know if there's any difference. Are the flags put away or are they still out?
Still out.
I wonder if the Muslims have still got them out. They've still got them out. They've got very weak memories. Not long ago, things were happening in Iraq. Not longer than that, things were happening in Afghanistan. Not longer than that, things were happening in Kosovo. Not longer than that, in Bosnia. And it goes on and on and on. Unfortunately, we have very weak memories. So Shaitan, dear friends, is not just going to give up hope on a person. When he loses hope in this form, then he starts misleading a person by means of through Islam. He knows that this person has now come into Islam by means of pride in Islam, holier than thou, for example. Those who think that I'm holy, I've got a beard and he hasn't got a beard, I'm practicing, he's not practicing, I'm better than him, etc. Through means of Islam, then Shaitan starts misleading a person. By means of innovations, where a person regards something to be necessary that he has to attend. That's why, dear friends, make sure that as much effort as you make to come for the Quran Tafseer, also remember that it's not first that you have to come for the Quran Tafseer. It is important for you, and it is very, very beneficial for you also. But don't regard it to be a case wherein now whatever happens, but I have to be there Friday night. I have to be there on Friday night, whatever happens, because then, dear friends, the Quran Tafsir will also become a bid'ah. That can also then become a bid'ah. Why? Because it isn't something, and the reason why it's on a Friday is just for convenience sake, because Friday it's fine for people to be away a bit late, because next day is not so difficult, and because the Quran Tafsir were always carrying on in Huddersfield also on Friday, so the same day was kept, and it's convenient for me also. In the same way, the Wednesday Majlis is just kept on a Wednesday for convenience sake, and not that specifically on Wednesday night we're doing specifically Dhikr Majlis. Otherwise, if a person specifies specifically that on Wednesdays we're just going to do Zikr on Wednesdays only, and for that only we come, etc., then that also, dear friends, becomes a bid'ah. And that is something that is very, very important that a person must realize. In the same way, any other gathering, wherever there's majlis of the Shaykh carrying on, and a person regards that is zaruri, he has to be there, it is part of his deen, never mind anything else, whether he reads his salah or not, but because I have to be there for the Shaykh's majlis or for his dhikr, that also becomes a bid'ah. That is something that is very, very important, dear friends, very, very important. So through means of deen also, Shaitan misleads a person. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly tells us, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُ خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ Do not follow the footsteps of Shaitan. إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌ مُبِينٌ He is indeed for you, he is an open enemy. He is an open enemy to you. Now obviously there are certain things on the apparent which we know that yes, this is the work of Shaitan, but also إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌ مُبِينٌ There are certain aspects of Shaitan's trickery which a person may not just openly see, which person won't realize. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, you need to have the gazes, you need to have the eyes wherein you realize that it is lakum adu mubin, it is the work of Shaitan. As a person has to always be aware and alert of the mischief of Shaitan. Always be conscious of your heart also, of the evil of Shaitan that is happening in the heart. Because when a person isn't conscious, dear friends, that's when Shaitan takes over a person and starts misleading a person. As you find at times a person who will be good practicing, he was on the right track, and all of a sudden he becomes deviant. He becomes deviant, he joins some deviant sectors, deviant group, but in his mind he thinks that now I am on haqq. He now says that now I am on haqq, before I was off the track. Whereas what he doesn't realize is that he's off the track. This is how shaitan has now misled him by means of deen also. A person becomes a Qadiani, an Ahmadi, a Shia, but he thinks, in his eyes, he thinks that no, I am on haqq. Whereas shaitan, innahu lakum aduwwun mubin, shaitan starts misleading a person. That's why it's very, very important that a person keeps track of himself. And the only way a person can do this, dear friends, is by a person being in a company of the pious, by being in a company of the scholars. That's the only way a person can keep track of himself, because such types of gatherings will always clear whatever doubts are in his mind. And obviously if he starts wavering, he can always come and ask. And obviously if a person has somebody who is his spiritual guide, his spiritual shaykh, etc., then all the more it helps the person wherein the shaykh then diagnoses what's in his heart, and he can get it remedied. Further, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِن زَلَلْتُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْكُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. That if you slip up, مِن بَعْدِ thereafter, مَا جَاءَتْكُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ, the clear signs, meaning the commands of Allah, the Quran, have come to you, فَاعْلَمُوا, then know, أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ, that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Azizun, the Almighty, Hakim, all wise. Meaning that if you slip up after مَا جَاءَتْكُمْ بَيِّنَاتُ, the clear signs have come to you, meaning the Quran. So if a person after becoming a Muslim or is a Muslim, and then what happens is he slips up and he starts doing wrong actions, Allah Ta'ala says, فَعَلَمُوا, then know, أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ Hakim, indeed Allah is Almighty, Hakim, all wise. Which means that a believer shouldn't think that, oh, I'm committing sins for so many years, Allah hasn't punished me, so what I'm doing is probably something light, it's okay, I can carry on for another few years. And this is what happens. A person thinks that the moment I commit sin, and then the punishment should come, because we're not getting punished, I'm not being punished, so okay, now I'm carrying on for longer while. Whereas here it says, فَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ Hakim. Know that Allah is Almighty. And because He is Almighty, any time the Almighty punishment can come down. And He is Hakim, all wise. Meaning He knows why exactly He's giving you more time. He knows why the punishment is held back. Because if the punishment comes on the first time a person commits sins, now obviously he won't commit sin again after that, isn't it? Whereas here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a person time to see how much he still messes with the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is exactly what we do, dear friends. We actually, whenever we break the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are playing. We are messing with the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we regard it light because we're not being punished. But what is happening is Hakim. He knows exactly. So what He does is give us more time and more time and more time. Then obviously He's going to build up and build up and build up. And the greater evil that we are in, the greater sin that we're in, then when the smack comes, dear friends, obviously it's going to be Azizun. It's going to come with its full might and power. هل ينظرون إلا أن يأتيهم الله في ظلل من الغمام والملائكة وقضي الأمر وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing the believers and predominantly the non-believers, He says, هل ينظرون, what do you wait, إلا أن يأتيهم الله, for when Allah comes to you, في ظلل من الغمام, in the shadow of the clouds, والملائكة, and the angels, وقضي الأمر, and the matter is completed. Meaning, do you wait for the day of Qiyamah? Do you wait and do you expect that Allah is going to come with the angels down to you and now finish the whole matter off? Are you waiting for the punishment of Allah, in other words? Because in various ahadith it mentions that on the day of Qiyamah, day of resurrection, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come to do the reckoning in a group with the angels. Elsewhere it also mentions that the angels will come in a great group to the heavens. So, referring to that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that, is this what you are waiting for the final time to come, or for the punishment to come? Are you standing and waiting? Because you know, one of the habits of the kuffar were that they would continuously torment Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that if what we are doing is wrong, then where is the punishment? One of the excuses that always make is, that if what we are doing is wrong, if our kufr and our shirk is wrong, then how come we not punished? We're living okay, we're eating, sleeping and everything, we're money making, we're living good soft life. So where is the punishment coming? They were coming and torment, and each and every prophet had to go through this, wherein the people would come to them and ask them, where is the punishment? Show us the punishment. And they would even say that we'll only believe in you if you show us the punishment. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also warning that, is this what you are waiting for? وَقُضِي الْأَمْرِ, and the whole matter should be completed once and for all. وَإِلَى اللَّهِ تُرْجَعُ الْأُمُورِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are all affairs going to return. Finally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that do not forget, whether you come into Islam completely or not, whether you follow shaitan or not, whether you bring iman or not, whether you are waiting for the punishment or not, وَإِلَى اللَّهِ تُرْجَعُ الْأُمُورِ. At the end of the day, all matters and all affairs is going to be returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Each and every person's files are going to be submitted and is going to be returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No files, anything is going to slip away, nothing is going to go unseen. Each and every affair and matter is going to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously when everything returns to Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to then start the reckoning, and nothing will be concealed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On this we complete the ruku that we were currently on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the tawfiq to enter into Islam in its entirety. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.